What has been the reaction to Trump's stance regarding the protests?
Well, it's been mixed, but his attempt to strike this dramatic, aggressive pose seems to be flagging. He was his appearance before the historic church in Washington yesterday, which was preceded by the peaceful demonstrators being forced back by the police and by soldiers. That's come under sharp criticism from religious leaders, not just the Episcopal bishop who was responsible for that church, but also for the Catholic Archbishop, because Trump also went to a shrine today and to make an appearance, a Roman Catholic shrine here in Washington. Not only that, though, I mean, that's one thing. Washington's a pretty liberal city, but Pat Robertson, the televangelist, whose viewers are very much Trump supporters for the most part, was very critical of the president's response to the protest and his photo op in front of the churches. And not only that, his as I think you mentioned, his defense secretary Mark Esper pleaded ignorance, because he was at the church and he said he didn't know why he was there. He thought they were going to inspect the damage. So it wasn't a good first day after this moment of drama on Monday.
What about Joe Biden? Where is he? Where are the Democratic voice in this? Do they have any traction? Is anybody paying any attention to Biden's response?
Well, certainly, yes. Biden made his most high-profile appearance of the campaign today, or Tuesday rather, in Philadelphia. Now, did it exceed expectations? Maybe not, but it certainly didn't. It certainly didn't disappoint. And he basically said that these racial problems long preceded Donald Trump, and they're going to take. He said, "I can't do this in my first 100 days. This is going to take a long time for this healing to take place." Beyond that, his campaign has reported an upsurge in donations just since the protest and since his new criticism of President Trump's stance. So he has come out of this, at least initially, looking pretty good. Now, if the protests continue, they were not as nearly as violent over tonight as they have been. But if they continue, well, we'll have to see what happens.
What's the situation like where you are in D.C.? Yesterday, I was walking through the streets of New York. I saw a lot of glass on the floor. I saw windows completely busted in before shops were even opening up in the morning, and shops were completely boarded up, and if they weren't, construction workers were out there putting up 4x4s. Where does the country go from here after what we've been seeing over the past 6 days or so?
Well, again, it depends how this unfolds. It may, if there's more violence, and if it seems that mayors and governors cannot bring the violence under control, people may start to take a second look at Donald Trump's sense, projection of command and demand of his strategy of suppression of the violence and of the protests themselves. But where I am in Washington, I've seen very little of this. I live in a residential area, but downtown, I think a lot of businesses have been vandalized, and there's been arson. In New York, where I used to live, there's also been a great deal of mayhem and unruly behavior, and there was tonight too, but on a much smaller scale than last night.